the end of this, you're going to get a chance to talk to all these guys and ask them kind of like the questions on top of what they're going to talk about here. So thank you, Michael, for being here. Next, we have Nicole Anastasia, my dear friend Nicole. She's like a sister to me. We've been together in a couple of different models, and she's with Remax of Stewart. And Nicole and her partner Andrea, who's not here right now, they're little listing powerhouse team, and they have been doing it for a while. And I just want to say thank you for showing up, Nicole. Looking forward to you dropping some nuggets for the crowd. And in the center here, we have Adina Williams with Coldwell Banker Paradise. Anybody who doesn't know Adina, you have a treat in store. She's a lady. She is full of grace. She is one of the master professionals of the area. If you ever had the opportunity to do a deal with her, you'll know how to do a deal properly and how to hold grace through it the whole way. And Adina is absolutely amazing. She does it soup to nuts as well. I think she just took on a transaction coordinator, which is amazing. She has done it all herself. She likes to put it all on her shoulders, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about that. Next, we have Steve No. Steve's a dear friend of mine as well. Steve's got a background as being an attorney, which is another element of expertise that he brings to the profession. And right now, he's the man behind River House in Stewart, which is now a real part of the landscape of Stewart. So thank you, Steve, for arriving. And we got, anybody know Joe Rosen by any chance? So if you don't know Joe Rosen, you've been hiding under a rock for the last year and a half. So Joe Rosen is with eXp Realty. He is, it's tough to describe Joe, but one of the ways I would say is bombastic, monumental. He's got a heart the size of gold, and he has a personality that's bigger than that. So thanks you so much to the panel. Moving on. So the rules of the game here, guys. So we have to be out of here by 4:15. So we're going to try to keep our answers to just around 2 minutes or so, because we have to be out of here by 4:15 for fire codes. After that, again, so we'll have the opportunity to have questions with everybody out on the veranda here, however you pronounce that. Have some drinks and food. We got some food in front of you here, and we'll just keep that going. Pastali has going to be filling us family style with food the whole way. So again, you're going to have the opportunity to ask these guys questions after. My name is Alex Haigh. I'm your moderator. I probably should have started off with that if you don't know who I am. I'm with eXp Realty, and I'll be your moderator here for the day. So you can ask me any questions at the end as well. We might have, if we have time, we'll have some questions right here for the panel at the end, but we got to be out of here by 4:15, guys, okay? So, awesome. So, first, we'll start at this end with Joe Rosen. The moment in your career where you felt you pivoted from having quote-unquote made it. So you wouldn't be up here on this panel unless you really had figured some things out and that you made it. Was there a client, a transaction, a system, something falling into place, or maybe a specific event where you felt a shift in your business and yourself and you knew you'd kind of hit your rhythm as an agent?
Yeah, that's super easy. Because it was awesome, man. I was doing this when I first got here, because I've only been here, I think July is going to be 2 years, so I haven't been here very long. And I had 3 or 4 pending, and I was going nuts, right? I am not Adina. So I was going crazy with my 3 or 4 pending, and I think it was you said, you need to get a transaction coordinator. You're not Adina. And so I got a transaction coordinator, and it was 3, 4, 5 months later, we had 19 pending. And there is no way I would have done that without taking that great piece of advice that you've given me, and that was the thing. And the same thing with the team we got going on. These guys, it's funny, when they get their first deal, they'll say, okay, now what do I do with this? And I'm like, nothing, man. She takes care of everything. It's awesome. And you just move on to the next one. You need to go and find somebody else. And I think when we get those 3 or 4 going, you go in that roller coaster, right? You get to 3 or 4, now you're so busy you don't go prospect, so then you kind of come down, and then you have nothing, so you go and prospect your butt off, and then you got a bunch, right? The transaction coordinator takes care of all that, and that really, for me, was the big changing point.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. Steve, I don't think I have to repeat the question.
Sure, no problem. So I think for me, I almost quit. This is my 8th year doing this now. And maybe many of you have the same experience that I have. After about 6 months or 7 months, I was about to hang it up. Truly, I had come from a different industry. I was used to being on top of whatever I was doing before, and now I was among people that knew it better than I did, that were doing it better than I was doing it, that knew more people than I did. And at about 6 to 7 months, I went to my accountant and said, I'm tapped. I'm skipping lunches. I don't have a marketing budget. And my accountant said to me, he's like, look, are you doing all the things that your brokerage told you to do? Are you prospecting? Are you getting out there? And I said, yes. He goes, it's like a plant. It takes time to grow. And if you've planted those seeds, the fruit, it doesn't come out first. The plant comes first, and then the fruit comes out. And sure enough, by about 10, I think month 10 or 11 is when the fruit started coming to bear. And I think that was the moment when I said, I'm going to be okay. That's what all I was worried about, is that I was going to be okay. And from there, once one or two things started falling, 3 or 4 things started falling, I always tell my newer agents at my office, once the machine starts, it doesn't stop unless you stop it, right? So that for me was, once the fruit came out of the tree, was really when I decided, okay, I must have turned the corner on something, because, kind of funny to say, but I was going to fall back and go back to law, but that kind of the moment.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve.
Hey, everybody. I actually have twofold. My first I did it moment was when I mastered the listing presentation. It was like, oh my heavens, and it wasn't the first time I did it, right? It took several, and I still want to go on a listing presentation. If it's not somebody I know, my heart races, and I'm like, look at this. But when I mastered it, that was my arrival moment. And then my suggestion to new agents is I think it takes really a solid 2 years. Because your first 6 months, you're thinking, you don't even know where to go. You don't, what computer program do you need to learn first? How do you prospect first? What do you need to do first? That's the first 6 months. Then the second 6 months, you kind of have some answers, but you now know who to go to ask the question. And then the final year, you start getting those transactions, you make a little money, you don't have to eat ramen noodles, life is good. Those are my two.
Thank you. Awesome.
Hi there. For me, I started real estate in 2007 with a builder, and then I became a realtor by accident in 2008 when the sky fell, and I worked for a builder that went bankrupt. And what was I going to do? I had a real estate license. So my aha moment was many years after that, because for years it was just scraping and scrapping just to sell whatever I could sell. I was a buyer's agent for a foreclosure team, and it was awful. And anyway, so it was many, many years. But it was probably when I went to RE/MAX and we did a training called Brian Buffini. And it was just really learning that it's a relationship type business, not a transaction. So learning how to really nurture those relationships and utilize those relationships to propel the business forward. And then implementing a CRM. So having a CRM was critical, and really using the CRM. So for me, that was, I don't know that I've made it but that was a pivotal moment for me. I was really focused more on the process and the relationships versus the outcome and the end result. And then it just sort of grew organically from there.
Awesome. Thank you.
So as Alex said, I do prefer working with buyers. I am a buyer specialist. So for me, year one, I was able to walk into a prominent team and start producing right away. So that made life really easy for me. I had moved from New England to Florida. So what that did was it gave me instant credibility in the marketplace, because as soon as I spoke the words of who I worked for, everybody knew who I worked for. So that really propelled me along. Year 2 and 3, all of a sudden I found myself feeling totally burnt out and trying to figure out what was wrong. And what I realized was I had lost control of my schedule. I was letting other people, especially my customers, run my schedule. I was saying yes all the time. And when I finally learned to say, well, I can't do that then, but I can do it now, I can do it then, that's when okay, we can do that. When they tell you they have to see that property on Saturday, right now they do. But let's just say that. But back then they didn't. And so it was okay to say, I have an appointment that day. And that appointment might have been an appointment, or it might have been time with my family. But taking control of my schedule is what really pushed me there. And then lastly was year 7. Because it's a little more now, but the average American moves every 7 to 10 years. So all of a sudden, year 7, I realized, wow, where is all this influx of business coming from? And as Andrew was saying, and Nicole was saying, it's about, you build your career one relationship at a time instead of one transaction at a time. And when you build those relationships, all of a sudden, the statistics are true, and they start to roll back towards you. And so that was really a big moment. But taking control of my schedule was huge, because it gave me that feeling of, okay, I'm in charge rather than somebody else being in charge.
Awesome, thank you. How have you in the past and how are you currently pivoting your business, and this is really relevant in this changing market? I mean, this market has changed now in the last just 3 months, 6 months, really. COVID changed everything upside down. How have you in the past and how are you presently pivoting into that?
Well, for me, that was really difficult. The past few years, I really had to learn, I'm as a buyer's agent, I like to make low offers. I like to get a deal. But that's just not the case right now. And for the past 3 years, when it really started to change, I had to realize that, okay, I can't give the same advice that I was giving before. Because sometimes today, full price or over full price is the best price. So I had to pivot, really paying attention, focusing on the market, and realizing as the inventory shrinks, the way you help your customer changes, and you have to be paying attention to that because you can't sell everyone the same, you can't help everyone the same, and you can't approach every transaction the same because every transaction is different.
Awesome, thank you. Nicole?
Okay, so with this question, we stick to the basics, right? So we just kind of really stick to the basics, pick up the phone, call your people, just really stay in flow with people because, that's what you really have to do now. And also, as far as, to add to what Michael was saying, working with buyers is difficult these days because you're giving them advice that you normally wouldn't give them. And also with sellers. I mean, sellers are coming in with super high list prices and you're like, okay, because it'll sell at that price. I mean, so a lot of our old, a lot of the advice that we were giving sellers and buyers has completely shifted. For me, I think I had a lot of experience working with foreclosures, and back when there was a ton of them, and I worked only with buyers at that time. So I was used to the multiple offer situation. I was used to helping buyers, get their offer accepted when there was 10, 15 offers on the table. But are there new strategies? Yes, there are, and maybe I don't know if there's enough time to really talk about some of the strategies that we've implemented that have worked. So it's a slow process, but it's a working process. So we're just doing some things differently to engage sellers that are not on market. So we're going all in on off-market listings and pocket listings and things like that. So those are just some of the things that we're doing. I don't know if I kind of talked in circles here, but
No, that's
I only
good.
have 2 minutes.
Well, that
so.
gives them more material to talk to you about on the patio.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that we're doing because the market is so different. But like what Michael's saying, the advice that you give sellers and buyers is different now than it was 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And just paying attention, just really pay attention.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you. Dina?
So I've had multiple pivots in my career. Similar, my first sale was in 2008, so started with the foreclosure era. And there's a saying, one of the most winning soccer coaches told his team to go where the soccer ball is going. Don't play the soccer ball where it is. So I try and see where the market's going by listening every morning to different reports. Listening because I'm always driving, going to an appointment, right? So I paid attention when the foreclosures are going away. I started doing traditional listings, which is my aha moment, right? And then when those started having a ceiling and the contractors came back, I went to new construction and took all my buyers to new construction because they could build a house in 6 to 8 months and have a new house for almost the same price. So now we have no listings. The contractors can't close on a house within a year. They have stacks of buyers that will call you when we have something available. So I'm beginning to kind of look at what's going on. So right now I'm focusing on farm, sphere of influence, and obtaining listings. I did a search this week. Back during the foreclosure era, to your point, in the Port St. Lucie 5-3 zip code was the most prolific listing area. That's Gatlin-Becker area. There were over 4,000 listings in just that zip code in 2009 and 2010.
4 years of inventory.
Yeah, 4 years worth of inventory. Today, this week, I did a search of listings in Port St. Lucie in the entire city. No other parameters, no bedrooms, no pools, nothing. There are 394 listings in the entire city of Port St. Lucie. So listings are key right now if you can. And if you want to work with the buyers, then you need to be educated with how to get them the offer accepted.
Beautiful. Thank you. Awesome.
I think if we went back in time and looked at what was the trend before the pandemic hit, it was such a big emphasis on technology, right? You were getting leads from technology. You were meeting new buyers off of technology. You were harnessing all the new technologies. People were selling things off their phone. But I think when times changed and the inventory started to shrink, my big pivot came in going back to what kind of put me on the right path, which was building relationships. And I think we've all kind of talked about it. And I think what everybody's doing in this room is exactly what we need to be doing to make ourselves unique. More than just an advantage, but make ourselves unique is by bridging these relationships together. Because when the amount of listings becomes so small, we're going to rely on knowing each other for what's coming on. Now, I know obviously coming soon has complicated things, but having that relationship, I think, has been the biggest pivot for me, is building one-to-one relationships, going to in-person, putting aside the technology for a moment and really doubling down on, you know, the types of relationships that I've built over the years with familiar faces. And I think that's what's going to, you know, we can all talk about how long this is going to go on for. I seem to think that it's going to be going on for a lot longer than a lot of people will think. And I think that having these relationships is what's going to differentiate ourselves from the people that rely on grabbing leads off technology. So almost going back to the old school, kind of pivoting back to what worked in the beginning. And I think I heard a saying in the beginning when I first started selling, and when you're a new person, you're trying to figure out what are the metrics, where do I stand, what's my production, where am I number 20, am I number 15? Well, forget all that. Somebody told me once, the most successful agents in your given market, you probably never heard of them. You know, they don't market on billboards, they don't put out postcards. You know what they're doing? They're making relationships, right? 1-to-1, 2-to-1, figuring it out. The best, most successful agents in your market, you may have never heard of them before. But they're doing what we're doing right now is connecting. So that was my pivot.
Thank you. Awesome.
Man, I love that. That's good stuff right there. Yeah, so recent pivots for me. Really just one big one that jumps out at me, and that's when COVID hit. Like I said, I was kind of keeping up with my business, and it just went crazy, right? And it went crazy for everybody in this room, I'm sure. And I couldn't keep up with it all. And that's when I started building a team. And that team just made it so easy. Just today, I reached out to my team and gave 3 different buyer leads out. If I didn't have a team, I don't know. I mean, before I was either saying it might be like 4 or 5 days before I can do that. And like they were saying, 4 or 5 days ain't happening right now. That might happen 2, 3, 4 years from now, but it's not acceptable right now. So I had to have another solution, right? So I really think that team has just crushed it for me. If I didn't have a team, just thinking about other people in this room, I think it's really important to build relationships, to your point, with people you trust, people in your office who you wouldn't mind saying, hey, I can't take this one. You want to split it? You can take them out tomorrow and see, well, whatever your deal is. It doesn't matter what your deal is, but having those relationships where you can go back and forth with that person, because they're going to need you too. But really, for me, that's where I was able to focus on listings, pass some of those buyers off to people who wanted them, and it's just that's been a big pivot for me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this next question is similar to the pivot, but it kind of gets a little more granular into that. So what are 3 things that you have done to help hone your craft?
I've got the 7-Eleven accountability group on Facebook. It's every Monday through Friday at 7-Eleven Live. And in there, it is me giving tangible whatever or some sort of mindset that you need to just crush your day, right? Get your business better, get you better, whatever it is. But really, that's for me. A lot of people think, oh, it's really nice of you to do that for somebody else. Yeah, and that's great. That's fantastic. But really, it's for me to know that I have to push myself to learn something well enough to be able to get on at 7-Eleven every single morning and share it with the audience. You need to go and learn it so well that you're confident to be able to teach it. So same thing there. With the trainings, it's the same thing. But just kind of veering off of the team thing a little bit, and you don't want to start your own 7-Eleven accountability group, every single day while I'm in the shower, shaving my face, brushing my teeth, I've got my YouTube blaring. And it's Tony Robbins, it's Grant Cardone, it's Gary Vaynerchuk, somebody yelling at me, telling me why I'm amazing and what I need to do to get bigger and better and work harder and be more efficient and get the negative people out and the positive people in and whatever. But all of that feeds my brain, and then that feeds the rest of my day.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I don't know if I have 3 things that I would recommend, but for me, especially when you do get the call to take a listing appointment, the biggest thing for me is not skimping on that presentation. And if you've done it for 5 months versus 5 years or 15 years. I think after a while we start to get into, well, I know my stuff. I've got my package of materials. I know this person. This is a buddy of my mom's, or I play golf with this guy. So I'm just going to go in. Who cares about the comps? It doesn't matter in this market anyway, because I'm just going to find out what they want to list for, and I'm going to list it for that. But you got to remember that they may have called 2 or 3 other people, somebody that you might know. And I think to hone my craft, before I go on that listing appointment, I come with my A package, my A game, the full comps, even though they might be 3 months. The science is worthless. But that's my number one thing, and that's I think a lot of stuff on this panel, we very rarely lose, if you want to call it a win-lose proposition, on listing appointments, because every time I go in there, whether it's my brother's fishing buddy, he's getting the A package. And I think that's the one place where I notice some of our colleagues, they will just kind of go in and say, what do you think? I know you from playing golf. It's no big deal. And then no big deal comes in, and I take the listing because I came in with the A package. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I did mine a little differently. I have my 3. What I did to hone my craft is on my continuing education, I chose with each 2 years to get a certificate. So when I got my sales associate license, for my 45 hours, I got my GRI 1. For my second CE, I got my broker associate license, and for the 60 post licensing, I did my GRI 2 and 3. Went on to get the global luxury certification. So instead of just doing the 3 hours in a book to be done with it, I've tried to build on my certifications to help the professionalism aspect of it. The other thing that I do is I annually take classes outside of real estate. My 2 favorites. I took classes on personalities, and that has really helped, because I can go, oh, look, she's coming up with a blue hat and a blue dress, and she's bouncing because she has the yellow bow. She's a social personality. Or he's driving up in a black Hummer, and I've got this handshake that's killing me. He's a type A personality. So that really helps me address the person according to who they are. So that was one of my favorite ones. I'm embarrassed to say that this one, I'm going to anyway, I wrote it down. I'm currently taking a leadership class from Darren Hardy. Now, as Alex said, I don't have a team, it's me. But I feel like that my team are my clients, so I have to help guide my clients to where they want to go, and I have to work with them where they are and get them where they need to be. We're working with 5 generations right now in this marketplace. We have to be able to communicate with the baby boomers and the tweeners and the X generation and the millennials. We have to know what they need to hear to help them get where they want to be. So that's what I'm doing right now. And then the last thing that I have, I hope I'm doing okay, is networking with top agents. So we can all sit down with lunch with friends and bemoan the fact that this market is so hard. None of us are getting offers accepted, and just feed off of each other's negativity. Or you can sit down with a top agent and say, so what are you doing? Tell me what works for you, and take a nugget from each one and just talk to the positive people who are getting the job done and grow your business that way. Those are my 3.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay. So what do I do to hone my craft? I, like Joe, love podcasts. I'm obsessed with them. I listen to Tom Ferry. I love one called The Empire Show. His name is Badros Koulian. He is an amazing entrepreneur. He's the CEO of Fit Body Bootcamp. So every day, I'm obsessed with podcasts, and I just think it's a great way to get in 20 or 30 minutes of some good information. So I do that pretty consistently. I coach with Tom Ferry. So right now I'm coaching with Tom Ferry. So, with many, many years, I was not bought into the big coaching systems, but, we started doing it, and it's been wonderful. I also have been, for the past 7 years, I don't know, how long have I been with RE/MAX? Coaching weekly with Carrie. So I coach constantly. So and I go to different sources. So I just try to, constantly stay on top of things, hear what people are saying to stay relevant. So that's what I do. And I also commit to like a class. So whether it's like the Buffini class we did, and I did a Tom Ferry installation. So it's just constant coaching and training. It's really what I enjoy it too. I enjoy it. And now with the advent of Zoom and a lot of it's live and a lot of it's interactive, where it's a lot more than you just watching a video. So it's pretty awesome. So that's what I do.
Thank you.
So if you're noticing a trend, it's almost, you sit here and you go, God, I was going to say that. I was going to say that. I was going to say that. So you notice that, everyone's working those same angles, doing those same things. For me, the top three things are listen, listen, listen. So to me, input equals output. So every morning for an hour when I'm in the gym, it's something, whether it's Jim Rome or Tony Robbins or, he may be a dinosaur now in thought processes as new agents or younger people, but I trust you. If you listen and plug into Zig Ziglar for an hour, you are going to walk out thinking that you are going to sell every listing that's out there. So input equals output. Listen, 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 and just keep the positive things flowing. And it's funny that you mentioned Carrie, because also knowing Carrie Burgess, who is the broker manager over at Remax Stewart, learning from Carrie about exactly who I was as an agent was really important. And Carrie just looked at me and she threw over and she goes, Michael, you're just a fly swatter. She goes, flies are coming at you from all directions and you're just trying to swat at everything. And that was true. And at least I knew, that's who I am. If I'm working on something and a client calls, I go to that. And then another one calls and I go to that. And then I have to circle all the way back to what I was doing before. But that works for me. So knowing who you are, knowing how you work is really important. And then listen, listen, listen. Like I said, for me, input equals output.
Love it. So we have a common thread here. Continuing education. I love it. Listen, input equals output. That's awesome. Thank you, Michael. All right, so number 4 here. So if you could give the newer or struggling agents one piece of advice that would give them the best odds of success if followed, what would that advice be?
So again, for me, I'm going to go back to listening. Zig Ziglar, if you want whatever you want in life, you can get if you help enough other people get what they want. So focusing on what's important and what you're trying to do. For me, it's focusing on the customer and their goals are my goals. I know those are all little cliches that we say, but I love them. I'm an analogy person. I have to have something I can visualize. If I can touch it and see it at the same time, even better for me. But if you focus on helping the customer, the money always follows. I talk to agents and I say, if you're counting all the money or you're focused on, God, I need a deal, I need a deal, I need a deal, it's rare. It's the last thing you end up with is a deal. But if you focus on helping someone, it's amazing how the deals show up, they come together, and the money starts to flow. But if I was going to recommend one thing, I would recommend a book called The Fred Factor by Mark Sanborn. And if you can master being a Fred, then everything after that honestly becomes easy, because we are all in the customer service business. I don't care whether you're a realtor, if you're a heart surgeon, it doesn't matter. You're serving the customer. And if you read that book, it's a short read, because trust me, I am not a reader. But it's an easy read, it's a short read, and I think you'll see it, you'll get it, and it helps me stay focused on what's most important, which is my customer.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay. So what I would tell a new agent is be super intentional with your time. It's something that I even struggle with now, and I'm not a new agent. It's just staying disciplined and staying on task and staying scheduled. So if you follow your schedule, you'll be in good shape. Also, focus on the process, not the result. Don't focus on that commission check. Focus on the process, and also emulate. Hang out with agents who are crushing it. And what are they doing? So rip off and duplicate. Like don't try to reinvent the wheel. Don't try to get too creative. Just surround yourself with agents that are doing well. Figure out what they're doing, and just focus on that process and stick to it. I think that's most important. When I understood that there was a process to this business, then it really helped open things up for me.
Success leaves clues.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Success leaves clues. Exactly. That's right.
Awesome.
So a little bit background. Started in 2008, foreclosure era. I understood the market. I moved here not knowing a soul. So I started my business with no sphere of influence. When I started selling the foreclosures, it was a 50-50 split because the foreclosures were given to me. And then I had my broker split on top of that 50%. We were selling houses for $35,000 to $80,000. I was so excited when I got an $80,000 deal. My first $100,000 deal was like, woo, doggies. But I paid attention to the details. I answered my phone. I sat my ass in the chair and did what I needed to do. So by my second year in real estate, I'm sitting in a sales meeting, and my sales manager, Brian Lemon, at the time was there. And the owner of the brokerage walked in, and he's very quiet in sales meeting. And he looks up when it's his turn to talk, and he says, "I'd like to congratulate Adina because she's third in the county as buyer's agent." And it's all because I paid attention to the detail and I answered my phone. That's all it was. So perhaps you might want to team up with an agent that has a book of business going on. Give them 50% of the commission. 50% of something's better than 100% of nothing. We all hear that. Just do it. Then I built my sphere from that, right? So now I have a sphere from that is just like the rolling ball that I'm afraid to let go because I don't want it to stop snowballing. Attention to details. The other piece of advice that I have is go to Marketing Madness, especially if you're new. Go in person because there's a little different feel than doing the Zoom, and learn the market. There's nothing like talking to those agents who are out there and hear what's going on in the market. That's all.
Thank you.
If I was speaking to new agents at my office, I'd probably say the biggest thing would be to slow down. And that's painful for me because I'm a mile a minute sort of guy. And I have a coach, business coach named Mike Staver, and he challenged me to do the same thing. And he said, "Steve, say it out loud. Slow down." I get slow down. I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying to me. It's like, slow down. I get it. I don't get it. I think a lot of times if we don't slow down, we miss the details of the deal. Starting with who's on the other side of that deal. I don't know how. I always start a deal when an offer comes in by figuring out who that agent is, looking them up on Google, finding out where they came from, what area code they've got in their phone number, because I think that tells a lot. Seeing if I have anything in common with that person before I pick up the phone and to say, "Well, that's way too low." You know, say, "Hey, I noticed you've got a 203 area code. When's the last time you were up there?" Does anyone know what 203 is?
Connecticut.
Yeah. So, how do you know it's Connecticut?
Because I'm from Danbury.
I went to Wesleyan in Middletown, so we're like right down. See, we just connected over an area code. So if you take the time to slow down, that really gets you so far ahead. Immediately we have a connection somehow, right? So I think when I'm looking at new agents, we want to perform, we want to deliver, right? We want to pull our weight, but if you don't slow down, you're going to miss it, all right? And just know who's on the other side of that deal, because it might be Michael Ponte, right? But you know, the other thing I would say is, in slowing down, don't get in the way of a deal. We're so interested in being advocates, protecting our interests. As Michael said, it pains us to pay retail, right? But don't get in the way of that deal. If they want to pay over because they're coming from Jersey and they need to get out, their kids have to go to a school district that, you know, politics aside, allows them not to wear a mask or be full-time, there's reasons for them that they want to pay over ask. And it's not our job to get in the way of that. Our job is to give the details of what makes it a good deal, why they might be overpaying, what the risks are, but don't get in the way of that deal. You know, make it happen.
Awesome. So Joe, it's going to be tough.
Slow down, yeah, Mr. Slow right here. I just want to support first Adina's point about going in person, man. Look at this, right? How many times do you watch these different things online? And they're cool, right? They're cool, they're helpful, they're beneficial. But being here in this room, isn't this so much more powerful? You can do handshakes and high fives and all kinds of good stuff. So that was a great point. 3 quick things for new agents. I really think, I probably got the most boring stuff up here, but I really think it's the most important. Prospecting, right? And we can get into what prospecting looks like. There's 3,000 different ways to prospect, but just prospect. You have to go out and look for people. I've talked to so many agents and they're struggling, and I'll ask them, okay, what's your prospecting plan? What the hell's a prospecting plan? Well, that's a problem, right? You got to have some way of getting leads in front of you, the first thing. Second thing is follow-up. You got to have a great CRM. I think that was mentioned at the other end of the table. You have to have something. As horrible as it may be, if it's an Excel spreadsheet, maybe that's what it is. I think you should get a professional CRM, but you got to start with something, right? Sticky notes aren't going to do it. And then just going back to the answer to our last question, you need ways to get better. you're always going to need to get better. I guarantee the people up here are probably doing it more than anybody. The people who are really succeeding are pushing themselves constantly to get better and better and better. Never saying, hey, we've hit the pinnacle. You're always trying to push yourself. So I think that's the third big thing.
Awesome. I think that's going to lead really well into this next question. So if you only had $1,000 to $2,000 for your marketing budget for the year, what would you do with the $1,000 to $2,000?
Man, I'm just going to hate my answer. This is exactly what I do, but it's what I do, and I know everybody hates this, but I would cold call. I can literally get in front of 141 people an hour on average by cold calling, and they're all people that nobody else is talking to. Everybody's talking to FSBOs. Everybody's talking to expireds. Everybody's going to networking groups. Everybody hates cold calling. So for me, it's the easiest way to get in front of people. It's the easiest way to get higher commissions because I'm not competing. It's the easiest way to get them to stage their home because they haven't had other agents tell them they don't have to. It's the easiest way to get them down to price because they haven't had 3 other agents tell them a higher price. So for me, it's the best way to get a business going. I've done the FSBOs, the expireds, and that is low-hanging fruit, but man, is it competitive. So for me, it's a cheap way to just get in front of a ton of people.
Awesome.
I think if I had a grand for my marketing budget, I'd probably go to an old school stationery store and buy a bunch of thank you cards and a nice pen. And I'd go through my database and start from A to Z and start thanking them for all the things they've done, not in real estate, but in my life. For the person that taught me how to give a good handshake, I would let them know. For the person that told me a good recipe for a blueberry pie, I would let them know. And I do that the whole year and make sure that the rest of my money went to stamps, because I think it's like 5 cents or something. And that's what I would do. I spend the grand on stationery and stamps. And then, of course, following up with the call. Hey, I just want to make sure you got my note. I want to let you know how much I really appreciated when you told me how to shake somebody's hand. My parents are from the Philippines. We're, obviously Asian background. When I came, I grew up in Palm City. The culture is you don't speak until you're spoken to, and you don't, when you shake hands is meek. And I remember my best buddy's grandfather, naval aviator, he said, no, when you shake somebody's hand, you look them right in the eye and you squeeze their hand. And I wrote that note too late because he passed, but I still sent it to my buddy's mom. And the amount of business that came out of it, I don't even want to talk about because but the amount of gratitude I was able to release, I think, more than made up for the amount of money spent. So I'm kind of a weird business. I only sell about 30 units a year. I'm more of a concierge sort of guy, so I'm not out trying to farm different places. So I think those touches are really what made my business go far, is those personal touches.
Thank you.
Can I have the blueberry pie recipe?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, thank you. And to your point about thank you notes, I haven't done the personal ones, which is great. But I send a personal handwritten thank you note every time I meet with a buyer, every time I do a listing appointment, every time I get the listing, every time I get a referral. Everybody gets a handwritten thank you note. That wasn't on my list, I just stole your idea.
Sorry.
Okay, so I did start with $1,000 to $2,000 budgeting. And remember, I knew nobody. I didn't know anybody. I made sure I had a professional appearance at all times. I learned the market and had a talking point. That goes back to marketing madness, so that you can learn the market and know what to talk about. My talking point right now, hey, you're in real estate. The market's fabulous. Oh my heavens. If you're a seller, you can get more money than you ever dreamed of for your house. If you're a buyer, the interest rate's much lower than it used to be. There's some hiccups. Not a problem. We can do what you want. You know somebody buying or selling? Done. So just kind of come up with a quick talking point. One of the things that I did was I took $2 bills. I have to confess, this is my husband's idea. And I stapled my business card to it because I eat out all the time. And when we leave a tip, I'd leave the business card stapled to the $2 bill. Has to be a good tip so that they would have my business card. I spent the $2 anyway, so it's kind of free. Upgraded business cards. Spend some money to get some quality business cards, because when you're looking professional and you give them a weenie business card, it makes a difference. And then I'm a sphere of influence girl. I love my sphere of influence. So, car clubs, Parrot Head Club, neighbors, all my friends are clients because I made friends with them as we went along. So I keep that sphere going. The alphabet has 26 letters. The week's 52 weeks in the year. If you call each letter each day, you call every client twice that's in your phone. So I try and make phone calls every single day.
Okay, so we have 1,000 or 2,000 to spend. I'm a shopper.
1,500.
Okay. I'm a shopper. So I would say, I too do the handwritten note cards. Just like Adina, just like Stephen. Anyone I talk to, anyone I meet, handwritten note cards. It's a lost art. So note cards are inexpensive. Buy yourself some note cards. Definitely get a good business card. But I would say also invest in a CRM, some sort of CRM, and use it. That's important. That was a game changer for me, having a CRM. And they're not all expensive. I mean, you can get them for $100 a month. I mean, so there's your money, $1,200 a year. So definitely, get a CRM, invest in some nice stationery, and stamps. So.
Wow, I'm learning all the things that I'm not doing. So again, my business is a little different. I do list property. I don't want people to think that I don't. I don't love it. I don't enjoy it. The connection for me is to the house, not so much the customer. I am that rare bird. I love putting people in my car and go out and see houses. But I only show so many. So when they go out, they're ready to buy. We're not looking. But if that's your budget, I mean, I do touch my sphere. I do touch my customers, but I do it through a postcard. But that would be what I would suggest is that your past clients are your best base for your future business. So, I mean, let's face it, they're the ones that already love you if you've done your job correctly. So they're your, as Patrick likes to call my boss, they're your raving fans, and they're going to tell everybody about you. So staying in touch, for me, it's also a little awkward because for those of that know me but don't really know me, I have some social anxieties. So if I've had the same realtor in Connecticut from where I'm from since my family since I was a kid. If Marshall ever picked up the phone and called me and say, how are you and what's going on, I would totally freak out. I'd be like, why are you calling me? If I need you, I'll call you. So it does take that push from myself to pick up the phone and call my customers because my job is to take as much off their plate as I can. That's how I feel. So I'm not there to be their friend. They don't need me in their life, those kinds of thoughts. But I'm there to be their resource. So, being there for them, reaching out to them once in a while, you have that sphere, that core of your clients, but make sure you're touching them, whether it's a postcard. I think the stationery is great. I think that's fantastic. But like I said, your past clients are your best source for future business. So staying in touch with them somehow, some way that works for you, I think is really important.
Awesome. Well, we got a little bit of time, so I'm going to piggyback. So I want to see where we're at with time. I've done all of this that you guys have done, other than I don't have social anxiety about the phone, Michael. But I prospected back in the day, before there was RedX, before there was circle prospecting. I would go onto public records and look up people's names, and I would go into 411.com for Sarasota County on the other side of the state, and I would look up their names and find people that had these lots that didn't even have electricity in them, and I would call them up. Then I would also, Steve, write them a note. I would write them a card, say thank you, and because I didn't have any money. And I then implemented later on a CRM as well. So all this stuff, and now back then, the CRMs actually cost more. When I first got in about 10 years ago, you had to have like $400 a month because CRMs weren't watered down like they are now. But so all of this stuff works like this. You don't have to have a boatload of money. You just have to have a little bit of, the setting aside the time for prospecting. Have a heart to Steve and Adina and Nicole and Michael. It comes from a place of character and love and really wants to service people. So that's the common thread within all of this, and all of those tactics you can deploy without money. So I love that. Thank you guys. So number 6 here is, do you have a standard? So back to you, Michael. Do you have a standard you set with clients? What boundaries do you set? This is a very poignant one right now because it's a poignant one that we can get pulled in all kinds of different directions. So what is the standard that you set with your clients? What is the boundary that you set? And when do you set it? And how do you present that to them? What do you say specifically in this current market, what are the professional standards you adhere to with respect to your listings, presenting offers, and response time? So really, what are the expectations that you're setting as far as the limits that you'll go to for these people?
So when I got that question, I said, gee, it doesn't say anything about your buyers in there. So, but
It's,
again,
buyers are in there.
No,
sure.
but what I'm saying is listings are the name of the game, obviously, right? That's real estate 101. But for me, the answer to that question is be in control, but don't be controlling. So you're the expert. You're the one with the license. They may have bought, I bought, how many times have we all heard this? You know how many homes I bought in my lifetime? I bought more than one house. That's great. I mean, I've sold over close to 1,000 in my career. Have you bought 1,000 or have you sold 1,000? And it's said in such a way that you're letting them know that if you're coming from the right place, that they can trust you. And if they like you, they'll trust you. And if they trust you, they'll work with you. And that's the key. So you have to know what the right angle you're coming from. So, being in control, listening to the customer. For me, I sold $1 million home off of one word. The wife only said one thing in the entire hour before we went out to see. I chose the homes for them to see, which actually the husband ended up choosing them. She said, God, I just love sunsets. And the husband sent me 5 houses to go see, and I knew none of those houses were going to be for them. But I wasn't going to let him, push him back and say, those houses won't work for you. All I did was add the one house I knew they would buy at the end of the tour. And when we walked in, opened the doors, and there was the sun setting over the water, it was game over. So, listening, paying attention, and remember, like I said, you are the expert. So be in control and make sure you're steering the ship, listening and steering it in the direction that they want, finding them what they want, or getting them the price that they want, but letting them know that you're in control. It's your show, and you're there for whatever their need is. That's really important.
Awesome. So Nicole, what boundaries do you set? When do you set them? And how do you present them? What do you say?
So it's a complicated question.
It is. That's why I had to ask it again.
There's a lot of parts to
Right.
that question.
That's why I had to ask it again.
And I work with both sellers and buyers, of course, but probably more sellers these days, which is what I prefer. I think I'm a pretty strong personality. So right off the rip, I mean, I just try to, I don't want to assert the fact that I am the expert. Just know your stuff. I definitely set expectations early on. Not so much on the phone, but when I meet them in person. So whether it's a seller or whether it's a buyer, I am the expert, and they have to trust me and trust the process. But I do also, it's not about me, it's about them. It's about, my job is to help them achieve their goals. So I think just going in, confident that you have the tool set and the knowledge and the data and all of that information behind you, it's pretty easy once you assert yourself as the expert to kind of guide the process, whether it's a buyer or a seller. And I am that agent. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear. And that's okay. My job as the professional, that is my responsibility. So, I mean, that's, I think coming into the situation, presenting myself as the expert, being confident in the knowledge that I provide and the tools that I'm using, that helps. Wasn't part of the question too talking about, do we ever have to cut people off, or, how do we? Yeah, I mean,
that really comes down to the boundaries. What are the boundaries?
Yes, I want to talk a little bit about that. When I was a new agent, there were no boundaries. I mean, and I let people run my schedule, run my life, and I was miserable. I mean, 7 days a week, all hours. Doesn't now I know that I am the resource, and I feel confident enough that I can put the phone down. Don't answer the phone after a certain hour. It's not cancer. Is the house burning down? It can wait. So just being a little more comfortable, I think, in what I'm able to do, helps me set those boundaries. Just feeling that I'm the professional and
Thank
do
you.
that. So
Awesome. Thank you.
That's it.
To Michael's point, you need to hear what the customer's not saying. Pay attention to what they're saying, and then refine it and hear the sunset word. It makes a big difference. So, for my buyers, I do not show them a house unless they have pre-approval, period. Too bad. If they can't spend 20 minutes talking to a lender, why should I spend hours showing them a day of houses, much less weeks? When I was new agent, the secretary, administrator, whatever, she's wonderful, her name's Sandy. She said, "Don't you go out without getting that pre-approval." Every time I went out, I said, "I got it, Sandy, we're good." So it's good every single time. In today's environment, I'm meeting the buyers at the office, and that's really hard with this competitive market. But I meet with them, I show them how I like to work, I give them the buyer-broker agreement as a transaction broker. They sign off on that. There's a long discussion about it. There's education on that because most of us aren't doing that right now. And this is new to me as of 2 years ago. It's working fine. Then I show them listings on the office screen, and then we pick which ones they want to go see. For my listings, I go look at the house. I come prepared with my listing agreement and my comps and everything. I walk through the house. You know, you walk in and they go, "So I want you to tell me everything I need to do to the house, and I want you to tell me that I can get $100,000 more than it's really worth." And I talked to 4 other agents, and they all told me it's worth even more than that. So I walk through the house and I say, "You're right, it is a beautiful house. Once you sign this listing agreement, I'm happy to show you the techniques that I use to get you the top dollar." And they would go through my marketing plan and how best to get them there. The next one's talking about leaving the buyer or the seller. So I'm going to save my response to that for the next question.
I grew up in a medical family, so my dad was a doctor, my grandfather was a doctor, my brother's a doctor, my mom's a nurse, my great-grandfather's a doctor, pretty sure my dog is a doctor. Did anybody else grow up in a medical family? Okay. So the concept of being on call was something that was drilled in my head. So you probably know, I mean, some doctors have a set weekend or weekends where they have to answer, they have to jump and drop and go, right? The flip part of that is doctors have times when they're off call, but I didn't really realize. I just assumed my dad worked all the time. So growing up, I worked all the time. And I made the big mistake when I became a realtor. I was lucky enough to become, I do the relocation for Cleveland Clinic, so every doctor that gets an interview with the hospital gets in my car. It's pretty good for me. But I made the mistake of telling them, like you, I'm always on call, okay? And like you, I work from 7A to 7P, and then after that, you can call me anytime and I quickly realized that I was gonna burn out. Literally was gonna burn out, I was gonna quit, because there were doctors calling me at 11, texting me at 5 a.m., 5:30, and I had to figure out, and it took me about 5 years to tell them, look, and usually it's when I meet them for the first time, either at a listing or at a buyer consultation. At around 7 o'clock, I have family obligations. If we're not negotiating a deal, I do not respond to my text or my voicemail until the following morning, because I have obligations just like you. And on the weekend, unless we're negotiating a deal, it goes back to 5 p.m. So now it's a little different now with listings coming up and having to do that. But somebody told me once that, you know, because we're in this business, we're here to kind of help people. That's what makes us good, is helping people. But you can't light yourself on fire to keep other people warm. All right? Don't light yourself on fire to keep other people warm. You need to be first, and that's where you have to draw those boundaries, or you're going to literally burn out. Not to like take that fire thing to the next level, but so don't light yourself on fire to keep others warm. All right, and like Michael said, you know, be in control, don't be controlling. Sometimes you'll get those personalities, and maybe this is the next thing, but you need to crack back and say, listen, I'm in service, but I'm not your servant. Okay, so if you're venting, please keep venting. But you're starting to insult me a little bit, and I think the conversation's over. So I'm in service, but I'm not a servant. And those are, you know, those two sayings have kind of kept me kind of like even-keeled and not burned out.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just going to focus on time, which is I think what a lot of these guys are focusing on. I think it's important for all of us to have hours. I mean, how many people actually have hours? Every store has hours, right? Attorneys' offices have hours. Everybody has hours. I think with a lot of us, you get so excited about, I mean, we're all, for the most part, on 100% commission. So my gosh, if I don't answer that text, I might not get that commission, right? But I'll tell you from experience, because we all have the fear of, man, if I tell them I'm not working a certain hour, I might miss out on it. But I'll tell you, I don't know that I've ever missed out on anything. Not only have I not, but my favorite client ever, who I actually got from Mark Nomowitz. The poor guy, I've never told him. I'm going to tell him one of these days. He gave me a referral, and he got 50%, but I'm getting my 7th and 8th deal off of them now in less than 2 years. And she has said, Joe, when my kids call you and they want to go look at homes or they want to sell their home on Sundays, I know you don't work on Sundays, so do not let them take you out and look at homes. And I just love her for it. But all my clients respect my time. And I tell them right on day one, I'm up at 5:30, and you can text me at 5:31, and I'm done for the day at 9 o'clock. My wife and I spend from 9 to 10 o'clock together at night. From 6 to 7, I'm with family. But any other hour, Monday through Saturday, you can contact me anytime, and I will absolutely help you out. On Sundays, I'm worthless. 6 to 7 any other night, I'm worthless, and I'm done at 9 o'clock. And I've never had anybody upset with that. And I tell them, if you can't figure out a time in there where I can help you, that you're crazy. That's not me, man. And usually it gets them to lighten up, and okay, that's fine. But I'll tell you, I understand the fear. But the second you establish those hours and tell them, I've never had anybody who doesn't respect that. And it's going to help you, man. It's going to help your marriages. It's going to help you as a parent. It's going to help you with your friends. It's absolutely, in my opinion, critical.
Beautiful. Well, the common thread, right? So it's going to be different for everybody. Everybody's going to have their own, right? Some are going to be a little more open, and some are going to be a little more closed, but everybody has to find their own rhythm. So I love it. Thanks, guys. All right, so coming to the next thing, so those people that break that boundary and push the limits, do you ever release clients, refer clients to, in this stage of your career, are you ever, saying no to people? If you do, how do you draw the line with that type of client, and will you work with, and how do you communicate with a client, whether you refer them or choose to no longer work with them? So do you ever draw the line and say, I'm not going to work with you? Do you draw the line and say, I don't want to work with you, but I'm willing to refer you to somebody else so they can suffer the pain? What do you do in this situation? Do you refer them? Do you get rid of them? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I'll give you a couple real life situations, and I think all these happened within the last month or two. I've had people who want to go look on a Sunday, right? I just told you I don't work on Sunday. I had one today that wanted to go see one on Sunday. I said, hey, I can't do it. And she said, I got to see this house. So I try to work out another time. If it works, great. If it doesn't, that's when I lean on my team, right? Again, if you don't have a team, just have somebody who you've built that relationship with, who you can work with each other, right? I've never knowingly had somebody that I've lost for doing that. Maybe I have, maybe I haven't, I just didn't know it, but I've never had that problem. And I'll tell you, another situation is we had somebody who was working with one realtor in, I forget what the city was, but I'll say West Palm Beach, and then they were working here. And we weren't working West Palm Beach, so we can't help you down there. And in some situations, you'll work out a deal with that, whatever your deal is with that different realtor. In some cases, you don't, right? So you got to determine what it is you want to do. If you're not willing to work with a 50% chance of making a commission, I told that particular team member, hey, charge them a fee up front, and if they'll pay it, then you'll reimburse them on the back end with part of your commission. If they're not willing to pay it, then tell them to go find another realtor, or not. It's really up to you. Just make up your mind as to what the risk and reward you want to take is. And the last thing I'll touch on, I personally have never dealt with this, but I got a team full of females, and you get creepers out there, man. There's a lot of creepers out there, and I, again, have never seen that. I mean, I'm a bald-headed, chubby dude, so I don't see that kind of stuff. But I'm telling you, this is my opinion, and I would love to hear what you guys say. But I tell my guys, listen, just let those people go. There's so much business out there. You got so much time. You don't need that crap. And even if you do sell them a house, it's going to be a negative experience the whole time, and they're going to eat up all your energy. It's not worth the money, man. There's more money out there. So with that stuff, too, I know it's tough, and I know everybody's on commission, but you just got to let those people be, in my opinion.
I think probably in this room, there's nobody, realtor or professional business owner, that hasn't made the mistake of saying, I don't think I should be working with that person, but I'm just going to do it. It's a really nice payoff, and guess what happens, right? It's just as your intuition told you. Yep. They were a handful or worse, right? And I think we all kind of have to make those mistakes. Whether you're new or old, you still get kind of tempted by the well, it'll be worth it. I'll make it worth it. But it's almost like sales is almost like dating, right? Like when you were dating and you can tell which one's going to work and which ones are not. And maybe on paper the person looks great and I should be dating this person, but it always goes down in flames, doesn't it? So I think my biggest thing is to listen to your intuition. And if something feels like an experience you had before that wasn't successful, please don't repeat that. And I think the hardest part is figuring out a way, if you're kind of like me, like how to let them down easy, and it's not like it's not you, it's me sort of thing. But in real estate terms, I like to say, I really appreciate the opportunity for you to call me in here and trust me with your largest asset. But unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to deliver on your real estate goals. I think there might be somebody else that's going to be able to dedicate more time, more talent, or more treasure to get the type of things your expectations met. And I'm simply just not that person. Now, I really appreciate, sometimes they tell me beat it, right? But other times I think it's an easy letdown. I just don't think I'm going to be able to deliver on your goals, all right? And here's a person that might be able to do it. But from about 3 years ago, I promised myself I would never take on that toxic personality. It's just not worth it. There was one in Sewell's Point. It was a $3.5 million listing. It was mine at my price, but I knew I was going to get ridden into the dirt. And that one listing, the 3.5, would take away from 5 other $400,000, $700,000. I could make that money with a smile rather than that big commission that was going to cost me my integrity and my sanity. So that'd be my one thing. Like, recognize toxic clients, toxic people, and just say no to them.
Usually about once a year, I stop working with either a buyer or seller. It's usually because they're either being unethical, and they all ask a question that we're not supposed to ask, and you tell them I can't do that. But if they continue, I'm done. Or they're being unrealistic. Usually buyers in this market have to lose 2 or 3 houses before they realize I'm right, and then they go find one. Or our personalities just don't click, or they're toxic. So in that instant, I sit down with them and say, appreciate your business. I'm obviously not the best agent for what you need. No, I don't tap my hand like this. Thank you for your business. I'm obviously not the best agent for what you need. You may want to call the listing agent because you might have a better chance putting in the low offers. Or if it's a listing, you've interviewed 4 other agents, you may want to work with one of those agents because it's not realistic with the current market, despite what the current market is. But I do let them down easily. I let them maintain their integrity. I usually don't refer them out because I don't want to bestow that person on somebody I care about. If it's somebody that's shopping in another market, I do my homework. If they're shopping in Palm Beach and they need a house that doesn't exist down there, sure, I'll take it. I got a 75% chance of getting that one. If it's somebody that's shopping in Palm Beach and what they want doesn't exist up here, then I probably won't work with them. But I always talk to them in person as another person.
Thank you.
So, first starting out in the business, you work with anybody. I mean, you just, it's a numbers game, right? So it's the more buyers that you're touching, the more people you're talking to, the more homes you're showing, the more at-bats, the more chance you have of obviously converting that person. Now, like Steve and Adina and Joe said, I'm a lot more selective with the people that I'm working with, especially if it's a buyer. We really want to focus on listings on my team. And so if it's a buyer, it has to be typically a referral is really what I prefer. It has to be a good referral. But even recently, as of about 2 weeks ago, I had a referral to help a family that had been working with an agent for a year. 9 offers, and they're still out shopping. So now fast forward a year, they're living with their children, and I said I'll help them, I'll work with them. Put an offer in, over asking. The offer was coming in bilaterally, we're getting it signed. The husband turned around to me and said, you know what, I don't think I'm willing to pay this. I'm just fishing. I'm just putting my line out there and fishing. And I totally got the wrong girl for that. So I told him, I said, I called the agent, we withdrew the offer as we stood there, and I said, listen, you've been doing this a year. I said, good luck. I said, I really hope you find the right home and one that, you know, that you guys love and that you can, now you're able to move out of your children's, you know, house, so on and so forth. I called the referral source and I kind of explained what had happened. And I said, I just can't work with them. So, I mean, yes, you know, it happens. It was hard because I felt so bad because the referral source is someone I worked with over the course of 11 years. So I have an 11-year relationship with that referral source. But, you know, I'm not going to spend my time fishing. I'm not going to do that. So, you know, sometimes you just have to know when to break up, whether they're toxic or whether they're just not respectful of your time. And that's how I felt. I felt that by him saying that was just a tremendous amount of disrespect for what we do. Clearly, that other agent had tried for a year. The common denominator was the buyer, so not for me. So yeah, break up with people all the time.
Right, the breakup is it's always it's you, not me.
It's not me.
You know, but you have to tell them that it's me, not you. That's the thing, right? It is always them when you're breaking up with them. One thing I want to touch back on real quickly was about the budget thing I had written down but forgot to mention it. There's a book out there by Michael Mayer. It's the 7 L's of communication. That's where you're going to spend that money on your past clients. It's all about lunches, lunches, lunches. And I promise you that book is a tremendous value. But as far as breaking up with clients, honestly, I would say less at this stage of my career than earlier in my career. But there was one time a customer who was moving back to Martin County, which is predominantly where I do most of my work, sent me a list of 31 homes. This is back when there was lots of inventory. My response was 2 names and 2 phone numbers. That's it. That was my response in the email. He called. I could hear his wife in the background yelling at him. He said, Michael, did I do something wrong? I said, no. I said, but I'm not the realtor to show you 31 homes. I said, those are the names and numbers of 2 realtors that will. And he started with the but. And I says, Mark, you have to trust me. Have I not asked you a million questions? Have we not spent all this time on the phone? I said, you have to know that I know what I'm doing. I said, and I promise you, I will find your home. When they got to town, I had 4 houses for them to see. The arms are crossed, he's not happy. But by the way, I added a 5th that he didn't know about, had just popped onto the market. And ask me later, because there's a whole backstory to this story, and Jennifer, you should be there when I tell it, because you'll love it. So the idea was, I put that address of that 5th house in a sealed envelope and gave it to him at the start of our tour. And he says, what's this? I said, just hold on to it for later. At the end of the day, when we finally came back to the office after seeing the 5 homes, wrote the offer, he was walking out the door, he was all finally happy, realizing he didn't need to see 31 homes. I said, hey, by the way, do you have that envelope on you? And he said, yeah. I said, open it up. And in the envelope was the address that we had written the offer on, and it was the 5th home that I had added. So the idea is know what you're doing, know your stuff, but be willing to let them go. I mean, I was willing to he was a sure thing, they had to buy a house, but there was no way I was getting in the car and showing 31 houses. It's just not going to happen. And I always tell my customers 2 things. I tell them the only reason to work with a realtor is to waste as little time of theirs as possible. That's why they need to work with a professional realtor. And I always tell them, I will always tell them the truth, no matter how hard it is for me to say or how hard it might be for them to hear. And they always know that that's what they're going to get from me. So if I have to fire them, no, I will not refer them to someone else because I just won't do it. Because it takes a lot for me to let go of somebody. Usually it boils down to what Adina said, it will come down to integrity. So that's really the only time I fire anyone.
So the common thread is setting standards.
Yeah, it's
setting standards and then asking really good questions. You're interviewing them.
Oh yeah.
They're not interviewing you. You're an independent contractor. So you ask them really good questions, set the standard, and then break up with them quickly if they start to break that standard. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's the Moneyball effect, right? If you've ever watched the movie Moneyball, what would you rather take, 1 to the head or 5 to the chest? So if you're going to fire them, 1 to the head, let them know, listen, we're just not going to be working together anymore. I just don't feel it's a good fit. I think it's me, it's not you. I'm just not the right realtor for you. So just quick, easy, and painless. And when they go but, you give them the same response. It's just, I don't think we're the right fit. My personality is just not going to work well with yours, and I just don't think I'm the right realtor for you. You just give them the same spiel back.
The other common thread is real estate is like dating. This is the common thread.
Totally.
So, Know your worth, both in real estate and in dating. Legit. So anyways, number 8. All right, back to you, Michael. What advice would you tell yourself, your 5-year-ago self? What would you say to help your 5-year-ago self to be in a better place? And I know everybody here too, well, I don't know. I'm going to anticipate that everybody is happy with where they are, right? You're happy, you're healthy, right? You got your family, things are good. So we could all say, well, I'm happy where I am. But if you could say, I constantly say, we have agents on the team that are newer, and I want to say, I want to help you. I'm not here to try to dominate or prove anything. Like, I speak to you from the future. What would you say to yourself from 5 years ago?
Well, I'm in the 11th year of my career, so 5 years ago, things were just booming and for me and going great. So I don't know that I could look back 5 years, but
Your 11-year-ago self, what would you say to that
so
guy?
that's where I was just going to go. So my 11-year-ago self, my boss Patrick threw a benefit for a Keller Williams agent who had hit his head and had a traumatic brain injury. And out of that, one of the agents that he brought in some star power agents and was the largest ERA agent in Canada. And he came in, and Pat actually also brought him into the office. And he brought me in to introduce me to him. And when the agent looked at me, he said he had a brand new assistant with him. So that first trip that he had taken together. And he says, Michael, what's your main goal in real estate? And I looked at him and I said, my main goal is to make my broker as much money as I can. And his assistant had a weird look on his face, and the broker looked at him and he kind of hit him in the shoulder. He said, pay attention. He said, Michael, why is that your main goal in real estate? I said, because the more money I make from my broker, the more money I make for myself. So my focus is always on serving. So paying attention, listening, and knowing what my role is. I am an independent contractor, but you'll hear me say my boss all the time because it keeps me grounded. I grew up in a family business. I've owned my own business. And when I step out every day to work with a client or a customer, I know we're not supposed to call them clients, I was taught. So, but the idea is that I represent that person. I represent my boss, his family, his legacy. So it keeps me grounded, it keeps me focused, and it keeps me accountable by myself, accountable to that. I have to represent for him. And like I said, he's been amazing to me. And if you focus on the right things, I feel that the right results always show up.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay. So 5 years ago, I was at Remax, but I think maybe I'll go back to the brand new agent, which was 14 years. I started roughly 14 years ago. Just really stay consistent with the things that work. So it kind of goes back to what I said earlier today. Just really dial in your schedule, time block your schedule. Even now as a more seasoned agent, it's something that we struggle with because we get really distracted because the more business you're doing, the more problems you have and the more phone calls you get. And, so I tell myself this on a regular basis, and that's why I still coach. I have an accountability to the coach. I do it with 2 different coaches. So really just stay structured, stay disciplined in that schedule. And if it's not on your schedule, it doesn't exist. So that's, and again, I'm repeating this because this is something that I still am working on. And I don't know that I'll ever perfect it. Maybe I will. But, I struggle with staying on my schedule, doing the things I know work every day. So that's what I tell myself now and would tell myself 14 years ago and tell any new agent coming into the business. Just really own that schedule. Time block. Time block, time block, time block.
Thank you.
My suggestion is to surround yourself with quality key vendors. The inspector, the lender, the appraiser, the photographer, and make yourself important to them. Now, if you don't have a lot of business, you can offer to, hey, let me see if I can get you into sales meetings so you can talk to everyone at the office. Or another agent and I are having a function, would you like to come meet the other agents? Make your name known to them so when you call them, they're in Cancun on vacation, they see your number, they pick up the phone. And if you do the quality vendors, I feel like that they are an extension of me, so I want to make sure the quality that I maintain extends through them. And if they're not on time, if they're not doing quality work, that's a poor reflection on me because I recommended them. Yeah, all the documents say that we're not bound to what they do, but I want them to reflect me well. And then, this goes back to the previous question. Let the clients go. Don't hang on to the client because that one client is going to cost you 5 others. And you've got that $1 million house, right? And you're so excited about it. But if it's not going to sell, it's going to cost you $300,000 sales and you lost out on 1.5. So those are my 2 suggestions.
You know, I think if I was able to go back to 5 years ago, it would have been my 2nd or 3rd year. And that's really when you start getting interesting opportunities, right? Like your uncle has there's a storage unit place. Well, maybe I'll try and sell storage units. For me, it was somebody approached me and said, would you like to sell the tennis club in Martin Downs, Palm City? I don't know anything about tennis clubs. You know, I didn't even know what a profit and loss sheet looks like, but I was going to take it on because it was an opportunity in real estate. Well, I wasted, I don't know how many hours, most importantly, and how many dollars before it got foreclosed on and got sold by the bank. So I think if I was able to go back in time and tell 2 years out, Steve, don't take everything that falls into your lap. Interview, interview, interview. Find out as much as you can. And I'm not saying don't try those opportunities, but make sure that's the right opportunity for you. So Alex mentioned River House Steward. I know some of you with the Women's Council had come to see this project. It's a luxury condominium project that I've been the director of sales for about 3 years now. And we're now selling them. They're a finished product. And it's taken, 3 years of my career, and I don't know how many thousands of dollars in marketing to get to this point. Now, luckily, we're done in the best market, seller's market in history. And we're going to close, I think it's like $35 million on the list side, another $15 million on my buy side. So it's a $50 million payoff, right? But if it was the wrong thing, this would have been all for naught. There's another project downtown that it's probably not the right thing because the developer is not capitalized. So you have to pick your clients. And so from the big projects down to the smallest customer, you have to make sure that that's the right person for you. Don't feel obligated. Like if your uncle or your aunt says, you really need to help my neighbor, and you go over there and it's a dog and they have unreasonable expectations, you owe it to yourself to say no. And that's what I would say to just say no. You'll benefit in the future.
5 years ago. 5 years ago, I was in Afghanistan.
The beginning of your career.
Yeah,
You're just starting off. You're telling yourself.
Yeah.
You starting off.
Yes. So I will. So, I don't know how many people in here know me, but I sold real estate in Minnesota for 5-6 years back in my 20s. I was in the Army for 10 years, and then I got here, and I've been here for almost 2 years. But I will say there's a tremendous difference between now and when I first started out in Minnesota. And the biggest difference really is just aligning myself with people who are doing what I want to do, right? And it can be anybody. It can be anybody. It doesn't have to be within your brokerage. It doesn't have to be anybody within real estate, honestly. It can just be people that you look up to who are doing the things that you want to do, who are consistent with what you want to do, and just being around them. And I think that taking them out to lunch, and not just taking them out to lunch, but taking them out to lunch scheduled, consistently, right? Like, hey, when you're done with that lunch, let's do this again in 30 days at 3 o'clock at Meeting Street on a Tuesday. Does that work? That works. Awesome. And do not leave that lunch until it's done, right? Put it on your calendar, because if you're around those people who are telling you exactly what it is that they're doing to succeed that you want to mimic, you can get there so much faster. They've failed. We've all failed a ton up here. And if you can see the failures from somebody who's been extremely successful and skip over those failures, and then they can let you in on some of the successes, and you can take advantage of them quickly, you're going to get where they are so much faster. And they want to see that. We all want to see you guys. It's why we're here, right? We want to see you guys crush it and have the success that you want to have. So really, if you ask any of these guys with whatever level of success it is you're looking for out to lunch, they're going to do it for you.
Love it. One of the things that, and you bring that up, that rings true for me, was something that my grandfather said, and he said, you're smart if you learn from your mistakes. You're wise if you learn from others. And so that's what resonates, and this is what all these guys have done. They've been coaching, they've listened, they've had good brokers, and they continue to refine their skills. And if you can learn from your mistakes, like, because I've made a ton, look, being aligned with others that can help you is big. So thank you for that, guys. All right, so we're on number 9 here. We've got about 15 minutes, so we got to shoot through this. Wait, here's the one. I think everybody's going to love this one. What does work-life balance mean to you, and how do you honor that? And this is going to be different for everybody, right? So what is work-life balance for you, and how do you honor that?
Yeah, I think your sentence there was perfect. It's going to be different for everybody, right? So what I'm about to tell you is probably not what a lot of you guys are going to want, and at a different stage of my life, it'll probably be different too. So whatever I'm about to tell you won't necessarily apply either. But I already told you my time schedule, right? I work a lot, but I love it. Like, I'm passionate about it. I love it. Some of you guys want to work 40 hours a week. That's fine, right? But I think really for me, it's sitting down and having that, and not just once. Like, you should do it maybe once a quarter, once every 6 months, that honest sit down with yourself and saying, what is it I want out of life? Right? Do I want to go to the gym? That takes time. Do I want to read? That takes time. Do I want to travel? That takes time. Do I have a family? That takes time. Do I want to go and do social things? That takes time. And you probably can't do everything you want all day long, right? This is too much. So you need that balance that you're talking about. But I think it's just having an open conversation with yourself. I mean, how many of us really sit down and have that conversation with ourselves and have it consistently, because it does change, and then you commit to whatever that is. She's talking about how you need to have a schedule and stick to that schedule, and that schedule is so important. I think that's true too. A lot of us will say we don't have time to do certain things, but really you got a lot of time to do a lot of things if you look at what you're actually doing throughout the day, and there's a lot of time left over at the end of the day to spend that time with friends and family and swimming and going to the beach and all that good stuff. So really I think that time management is a big one, and having that open discussion with yourself consistent. I'm such a big fan of not just saying and hearing good things, but like writing it down so you can execute it later. Having that conversation every 6 months for me is a big deal, because those timelines are going to change.
Thank you.
As you said, the picture's gonna look different for different people, and for me personally, I think work-life balance is a myth. For me personally. Now that doesn't mean that I don't make time for myself and for my family. All right. So for me, I always hear, look, we need work-life balance. That sometimes it gets skewed to think you need 50% work and 50% play, and to me that's where the myth falls into play. Me, I'm more like a 95 work, 5% play, but I think the key is the two words that have been mentioned here is honor and commitment. So when I do put something into my calendar for my son, I honor that commitment and I make sure that I deliver on it. Nothing is going to push me off from delivering on that commitment I made to my 8-year-old kid that we're going to go play Minecraft for an hour, which I absolutely hate. But I am going to do it because that's what he wants to do. So, and I think my message is, don't feel bad if you feel the same way as me, that you always work-life balance, and you feel like there's no way I can achieve that, because to me, I think it's, for myself, a little bit of a myth, because it isn't 50-50. It's some sort of give and take. But I think at the end of the day, we have to commit when we do commit, because that's when it really counts. So, what was that movie about Queen? It's a good thoughts, good words, good deeds. That's what that's part of it. It's honoring and committing to that balance, whatever that picture is in your family's mind, and don't ever violate that. That's what I've learned.
Thank you.
So I'm goofy. We all love what we do. I love what I do. I love the people I work with. They're all my friends, right? At home, I have my favorite husband, George, and my 2 kitty cats and me. That's right. And so my enjoyment in life is working with my clients. And I know that sounds goofy, and we've had discussions about work-life balance, and I think Alex needs to talk about this because he does the best job of this. But when I go to a friend's birthday party, remember all my friends are clients, so they know my work job. I get a call from an Army guy in Qatar that's trying to buy his first house, that he's 13 hours ahead. We're negotiating a deal. He calls me back because I called him while he was asleep, telling him, we got to accept an offer, but we have to get this signed, and I sent it to him, and he can't open it. Everybody knows that I'm going to take a half-hour away to work with that person. Is that work-life balance? I have trouble defining that myself. Or I have the little old lady who's selling the condo, right? It's $250,000. It is every dime she has. It's 8 o'clock at night. George and I are home. We're enjoying some time together. And she calls me because despite the fact I've gone over the net sheet with her 3 times, she doesn't understand math, and she can't figure out which bills she needs to pay now and which one she needs to save till she closes. I feel obligated to take that call. Now, the client that's abusing it, that just calls all the time, I do give them the boundaries. But I do tend to work more than most just because I enjoy it. That is my life as well as my work. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay. So I, like Steve, don't necessarily buy into the work-life balance. I think it's work-life integration. There's just no, the type of business that we're in, it's a constant thing. And yes, you have to set boundaries, but I think it's just, being able to, my family's super supportive. I have one son, so my life is easy. I have one child, and I have a very, very understanding and supportive husband. He's, we've been together 20 years, so he's watched this business, go from zero to where it is now. So they understand that, there's just certain things I have to do, and it's a lifestyle. It's not a 9 to 5, and I'm good with that too. But I like to play. I like to go on vacation. I like to travel, and I do that. So I just make sure that the business gives me the freedom to do the things I like to do. I like to shop. I do all that. I make sure I do all that because that's what brings me pleasure. So yeah, it's not, I don't feel that it's a work-life balance. It's a work-life integration. And I truly feel that it's a lifestyle. This is not, if you're not ready to really incorporate this into your lifestyle, this is not the business for you. And it's worked so far. And I've been on phone calls at 9, 10 o'clock at night, and sometimes early on a Saturday morning, but it's okay. My son was a year old when I started in the business, and I started with a builder, so they controlled my schedule. By the time my son was 3, I controlled my schedule. So I was always there for making breakfast, doing the drop-off, whether it's Little League or Jiu-Jitsu or whatever it is he does, I'm there because I can be there because I can control the schedule. So for me, it's truly just an integration. I do love what I do, so I don't try to shut off the work necessarily or forget about it because it's just part of who I am. So that's my little take on it.
Thank you.
So my work is a huge part of my life, but my life is also a huge part of my work. So, there are clients that I get to know that become friends. As a buyer's agent, I spend a lot of time with my people. The best emails or calls I get is they're going through Michael withdrawal after the transaction's closed because we spent so much time together that, now it's over. So that's really rewarding for me. So balance, I understand what everybody's saying, that, it's the integration part I like because then that's why I say they're both a part of each other. But for me, I never eavesdrop. If I'm out with my family or if I'm out, especially with my wife, Patrick, my boss, likes to say, if you're here real estate talk at the next table, just excuse yourself, go up and drop your card and let them know that you're here to help them. I've never done it. I won't do it. It works well for him. It's just not for me. I need to be present where I am. I can't work all the time, nor do I want to. But I do love work. I grew up in a 7-day-a-week business with my family. When my twins were about to be born, I opened a 7-day-a-week restaurant. So I do love to work, but I also like to do other things. And I can't be a realtor 24/7. I just can't. And my dad was always great on advice. And in our 7-day-a-week family business, my dad could fix anything at the store. At the shop, he fixed refrigeration, you name it, and plumbing, he did it. But at our house, he never fixed a thing. If something was broken, we called somebody. And so when I finally realized, I said, Dad, I don't understand. I said, at the donut shop, you fix everything. How come you don't fix anything at home? He says, because when you come home, if you don't put the screwdriver down, you'll never actually be there. So, if you're constantly back in your office after you come in and eat your dinner and go back in the office, you're never really home. So for me, that balance is all about just being present to wherever I am. If I am out, and the other night I was here for dinner, I had a customer who was in a complete meltdown, took the call, walked off. I said, listen, I'm out for dinner. I said, I can give you 5 minutes. Here's the deal. I said, and I'll call you tomorrow. So, but as soon as I walk away from that call, as soon as I end it, it's over and I'm back to the table and I'm fully present to where I am. So being present no matter what you're doing to me is really important. But you just can't be 24/7. At least I can't. I know some agents that are, and God bless them. I mean, it works for them. So know what works for you.
Yeah, there's a lot of awareness in there. So everybody heard different from everybody, right? Steve's at 95.5, Joe's probably 87.5 and 12.5. Adina, if you have a job you like, you're never gonna have to work a day in your life, right? So if you really love what you do, then it isn't work. Nicole's found her way through that, and Michael has as well. For me, people have said to me before, I've heard it from certain people say, he's a machine, and then it's like, I've been doing it for 20 years now, and it starts the beginning with that prospecting. I remember talking to a newer agent a couple months ago or whatever, but he said, well, I thought, I was like, well, you have to be on, man. You got to be on, like all 7, especially in the beginning. He's like, well, I thought, you get freedom. Go, that's the bullshit they told you to get you to, sign up. Or you thought that that's what it was. It's not. Certainly you have the choice. So that is true freedom. You do have choice. You're not in a concentration camp. You have choice. It's what you choose to do with that that I think is important. That's what everybody hears. So everybody has that balance. And I think having the awareness of knowing when maybe you're out of balance. When you're a kid, you can't play Minecraft with your kid because you did this, or you're not there with your wife, or your husband starts to get stressed, or Adina has a great balance because her husband is there for that. Like they all know. She's at the birthday party, like she's not over there ruining the fact that she has to talk to this guy and cut her. Like she's relishes it. So that perspective and that awareness, I think, is absolutely critical. So that being said, we actually got through all the questions.
May I?
You guys are amazing. No, yeah, you've got, you have 2 minutes.
I just want to say thank you. I think what you're doing is phenomenal, and we really appreciate you putting this together today. Thank you.
Oh, Dina, thank you. Well, thank you. Thank the panel here. They're all incredibly busy, right? And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for you taking the time to share. That's what it's about. When you get to a certain point, I think maybe some of us didn't have it. Hopefully we had a good mentor, but we didn't have panels. We didn't have people sharing and taking the time out of their busy schedules because they were so busy on their business. So I appreciate you taking the time. Because time is the most precious commodity that we have. And for you guys to give it, I'm very grateful. And I thank you all for taking time out of your busy days. Taking time out of your busy days. It's a testament to you that you would take the time to come here and stretch yourselves, to put other things aside, to say the balance is to get better, to learn from these people. So that being said, we're going to go and have some drinks. And we're going to loosen up the gears here a little bit, and you're going to get to ask these rock stars, some maybe more questions, and just get to know them. And you can see that they're human, but we have a few drinks on them, you're going to see the real humanity. Let's go outside.